because we have some OTAs to talk about, Zach. And every time you are on the panel following an open OTA, our views are awesome because people care about your observations to what you saw in person from Berea. Yesterday, after practice, Todd Monken was asked about his quarterback situation. And Todd Monken had a quote that caught a lot of people's attention. He said, quote, "I'm fired up by the quarterbacks. I just tell you, we got 2 starting level quarterbacks. We really do." Zach, you were there. You saw all the throws from Shedeur, all the throws from Deshaun, a special Dylan Gabriel throw, and if Taylor Green got involved, you were there to witness it too. So give us the lay of the land, Zach. What did you make of a specific change in the quarterback operation in the 3rd open media session of OTAs this season?
Yeah, so operationally there was a change, and that was that Shedeur Sanders was first in line for all of the 11-on-11 competitive periods, and that is the first time and only time we had seen that. So we've seen a pretty fair split, and then we've seen a pretty fair representation that it is a competition, but certainly over the first 2 OTAs that were open, which were number 2 and number 5, Deshaun had a little bit of a lead in terms of impressive throws, but more importantly, in getting those reps that were nailed down actual situations. But yesterday, Shedeur was in there, and he had the throw of the day. Now, it was bad. It was bad. The big winner of yesterday would probably be Arch Manning's West Side real estate agent, because we're talking a historically bad showing just from standing there watching. So just like last week, though, Mike, I thought it was crazy for people to overreact to Deshaun Watson throwing 3 good passes in a Wednesday OTA, just like it's crazy to overreact. It just wasn't good. Now, is it a little concerning that you're in OTA 8 and the install's done and you're getting to the end of the offseason? Would you like to seen it better, crisper? Yes. You know, the starting defense is not out there except for Tyson Campbell and Carson Schlesinger. So, it was bad. Shedeur had the throw of the day. Shedeur,
I would say the throw of the day real quick?
It was a bomb down the sideline, an 11-on-11 to Isaiah Bond. And it was an on-the-money outside shoulder. Isaiah Bond turned around and the ball was where it was. So, look, we're involved in pure madness in terms of quotes and quarterback tracking and people trying to make too much of 7-on-7 throws. It was a bad practice. I think that's a fair reaction. I don't think that's an overreaction. And I think more than anything, as we head to the end of the offseason, there is a quarterback competition ongoing. From anything we've seen, if there is an announcement or if there is a clear leader, it would go against what we've seen. Now, we've only seen 3 of the 9 after today.
You said Deshaun took a step back from last week. I know you weren't as high as some others were on what Deshaun did in OTA number 5, the second one that was open to the media, but what kind of regression, and I understand small sample size and this is OTA 7-7, but what was that regression from the second open media one to yesterday?
Yeah, I'd probably not call it regression, but maybe that is the right word, because it looked like Deshaun Watson. Lock on a receiver, throw the ball into traffic. It's what we've seen here for 5 years. 2020, Deshaun Watson does not play in the National Football League anymore, guys. And the events of the week would tell you that it's even more pointless to play Deshaun Watson than it's been for all these months that we've been talking about it. So that more than anything is the most notable shift. When we talk about big throws and highlight throws and this and that, Mike, we don't know. I'm looking at the reps. I'm looking at who's in the front line, who's in the huddle. So it was a sloppy practice. I mean, Shedeur had 2 delay of games. There was a bad snap. Deshaun threw another pick in 7-on-7. It was bad all around. But most notably, Myles Garrett isn't on this team, and this team is playing for the top of the 2027 draft. Deshaun Watson is not going to be a Cleveland Brown in 2027. The most direct way out of the Deshaun Watson mess is for Shedeur to be the guy. Can he be? Is there a small chance? Is there a big chance? I don't know. But Shedeur Sanders is 24 years old, and he needs to play in 2026.
We talked about Dylan Gabriel a little bit in the first hour. He got some reps yesterday with at least the second unit, and Zach, you were not impressed?
His first throw in 7-on-7 is the single worst throw I've ever seen at a Browns OTA. And the ball had to have slipped out of his hand, but it was a red zone. 7-on-7, he was trying to hit a guy in the back of the end zone, and he missed by 25 yards. That is not an exaggeration. People were openly laughing on the sideline. People being me.
Okay.
And again, going back a year sitting in this chair, I've never tried to make it personal with Dylan Gabriel. He's just not an NFL quality quarterback. He's just not.
You mentioned Isaiah Bond had another good practice.
Yeah, and I think that's what's notable is when I saw Isaiah Bond make a couple plays last week, I told you, I wrote about it, hey, this is what it should be. If a guy's coming along, it should be a little better. Isaiah Bond was not here for training camp last year except for the last 8 days. You know, he had a rookie season in which he showed a gear. He showed he was a long way away. So you see a couple plays made in OTA 5. You see a couple more plays made in OTA 8. should constitute progress. You hear the head coach come out and say Isaiah Bond is a guy that's really come on. If the same thing's happening for Shedeur, then we have a clue, right? If the same thing's happening for other guys, then the Browns have progress. But I think Isaiah Bond is one of the guys, along with Denzel Boston, that it's like, okay, as the Browns get ready to transition into summer break and get ready for training camp, those are guys you feel good about. And frankly, those are guys you didn't have last year. Bond was on the team, but he was not much of a contributor.
I know you're looking at quarterbacks. Have you seen Fano at all?
Yeah, it was his first day with the starters, and that's important because that was an inevitable transition, but the transition is being made. So, it's non-contact. These guys are obviously engaging each other, but he's a rookie, not learning a completely new position, but learning a position he hasn't played in 2 years and coming into a completely new environment. So to see him take it over as we get to June, we're going to watch him in training camp, and he's not going to be blocking Myles Garrett anymore, but he's going to have battles. He's going to have good days. But listen, he looks the part. Everybody raves about. He shows up and works. He's smart. He knows he needs to get stronger. So he's off to a strong start, and we'll see.
It's funny you mentioned Myles. If there's anybody who's glad he got traded, it might be Spencer Fano, and he doesn't even realize it.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody who, I think I mentioned this before, someone who would know, who said Myles is going to take great delight in destroying him throughout training camp. That's just
just what he did to DeJuan last year. There would be snaps where they could not even get the quarterback in the drop, and Myles would be back there. Because non-contact, as soon as you see a guy get near the quarterback, you're like, blow the play.
Well, I was it was a legitimate concern about man, I hope Fano can survive training camp without having his confidence shot, because Myles is going to destroy him, and he's going to enjoy destroying him.
Well, and listen, more than anything, this is operational, and not every play is going to be great, and Todd Monken knows that, and the quarterbacks know that. But last week, after Deshaun made a couple good throws, they put him out for a situation. The next drill, they couldn't get lined up. I don't know if it was Deshaun's fault or KC's fault or whatever, but Monken went nuts. Well, yesterday, they're taking delay of game penalties. There's bad snaps. There's things that get in the way of the operation, and that's where it is. And that's why, to me, it's silly to either gush or crucify a guy over a bad throw, because it's way more about what were they looking for on that play. And sometimes they're just running plays, and sometimes it's 3rd and 4, and they want you to hit the check down. So everybody on the side that's doing this, they can't wait to get the social media clip, hopes they throw that Isaiah Bond play every time. But when it's 3rd and 4, Todd Monken hopes that he reads the blitz and gets rid of the ball quickly.
Well, Jay always talks about and Jay being Jay Crawford. In spring training, there are certain outings for pitchers where they're just working on a breaking ball. And they're just working on a fastball. They're just working on throwing to the outside part of the play as opposed to going in. They're working on specific things that we outsiders, we never know the actual end goal of that said performance.
Yeah.
In these drills, we can get a general idea of maybe what they're trying to accomplish, but we're not in the headset. We're not listening to Todd Monken deliver the play. He may be calling the play and saying, hey, no matter what, you're looking at that first quick out as opposed to going deep, regardless of what the secondary coverage is. And that's the stuff that we just never actually know.
And even now, May or June is different than August, because once we get to August, we'll have seen it. We'll have known what's installed. We'll have seen both good and bad days, and you'll want to see a day where it just clicks. I think I put in the UCSS group chat, this looks like 2009. They went a week and a half in 2009 and didn't score a touchdown in practice. Okay, and I worked for the team at the time, so I couldn't write it. But I would sit there and I would go, oh my God. Oh my God, they did not score. They did not score in practice for a week and a half.
Who was it? Was that Cody Kessler?
Brady Quinn.
No, it was Brady Quinn, Derek Anderson. Yeah, it was Mangini's first year. They started that year 1-11.
Oh God. Oh God.
A week and a half without a touchdown.
But then the different discussion is this team's goal to start the year 1-11.
Todd Monken's here to win games. That's what they told us. That's what they've told us. So Jimmy Haslam said.
Oh, the camera missed Zach's reaction to that, but that was.
That's what Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy said this roster's too good to only win 5 games.
Well, and again, we talked about this in the first hour. The messaging earlier was far more realistic than whatever gibberish we heard in January.
I get that.
It made no sense. What they were saying, and I sat here and said it, what they were saying in January made no sense. It was much clearer and much more realistic when they were talking about it's going to take us a while to dig out of this.
So do you think there's a chance? Seriously, do you think there's a chance this is a one and done for Todd Monken then? If they go
anything is possible.
If they go 3-14, 4-13, they get a top pick and they get the quarterback and they want to bring that quarterback in with a specific head coach, is that a possibility?
I think anything's possible. I think when you hear it said, it's borderline absurd.
It sounds crazy even asking the question.
But there's two things.
Asking the question.
This is an organization that's lived in the absurd for 20-some years, and specifically for going on 15. But what makes it tough is Andrew Berry's case for staying which appears to be made, by the way, he just traded the best defensive player they've ever had, has to be tied in somewhat to Todd Monken being the right guy and the offense getting fixed, right? They could have drafted phenomenal, like it still has to translate to something.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to see. Like they don't have to start 4-2. They don't have to win 7 games this year. Like this year is about continuing to collect and develop, more so develop, young players. If they could collect 1 or 2 more along the way, that would be great. It's way more about that than the wins. But like people that think that they're going to win or that internally they expect to win a number of games right now, I just don't get it whatsoever. And you shouldn't expect it.
When you look at how this entire OTA session has gone, and I know you've only been allowed to see 3 of the 8 practices so far. Tomorrow's the last one. But how is this overall OTA session compared to those in the past under Kevin Stefanski?
You know, right now I would just say it's different. Like the first day when I went out and I'm like, I'm going to chart quarterbacks, I'm going to know this. Like it was just so different than last
Where's
year.
your quarterback tracker? You didn't put it out?
Well, I would tell the truth on mine, so that's why we're not going to get into that discussion. But it's just structurally different, Mike. You know, the way they set it up. You know, last year they said this is a passing camp and this is a quarterback competition. This year they're saying this is an installation and this is the way we're going to do it. And in the way Todd has set things up, it's just different than we've seen before. And I think how different, I don't know. What will training camp be? I don't know. I think it will be a little more intense, but like they're just kind of laying the foundation and going about it instructionally. Like until yesterday, the first 2 practices, they went more than an hour before we saw a full speed competitive snap. So like that, this is the very basic stuff.
Have you, and the answer very well could be no, have you seen enough to have any sense of what the identity of this offense is going to be?
Have I seen enough? No. Do I feel like I have a grasp on it's going to be a bunch of tight ends? It's going to be Quinshon Judkins heavy, and then they're going to try to throw quick play action rollout passes and run a lot of jet sweeps off of it? Yes. But it's going to be a run heavy, conservative
You just
offense.
described the offense of the last 5 years.
Sure. I would say that there probably is going to be a more emphasis on rolling out and letting quarterbacks create. And I think that's probably the primary and the only attraction to potentially playing Deshaun Watson. But he's no dummy. He's not going to come out there and let these quarterbacks make mistakes or let this rookie left tackle be on an island. Like these guys, the receivers are going to have to earn playing time. The young guys are well on their way. But this is going to be Harold Fannin as the moving piece. Quinshon Judkins is 20, 25 carries a game. And everybody else is going to be complimentary, catch short passes, roll.
I think it was after the first OTA. You mentioned Denzel Boston as a guy that just stood out. Physically, performance-wise, that was the indoor OTAs. He continued to make that progress that you'd want to see from a young
Yeah, yesterday was the first day that there weren't like multiple plays where you're like, wow, Denzel Boston's really good. But yeah, he's long and lean. He runs well. I don't think he's the fastest or most explosive guy in the world, but he's not like a huge lumbering, laboring guy. He's long and lean. He's smart enough to have picked up on the offense and have earned these reps, and the ball's going his way. And that's what I'm watching more than anything. The quarterbacks, by this point, they know what they're supposed to do. The defense, by the way, sees these plays every day. They know where the ball's going.
Right.
So the quarterback trusts certain guys, and number 12 has earned the trust of the quarterbacks. That's undoubted.
Jerry Jeudy's there, right?
Jerry Jeudy's there.
Thoughts?
He's looked a little better. He's first in every line. It's Jerry Jeudy. Yeah.
How are the other rookies? I mean, and not the Concepcion and the Bostons, but some of the later guys, the Justin Jefferson. I know Brailsford.
Yeah, Neil
Warrior.
Warren has been hurt, and I think they're disappointed in that because I don't think there's any doubt in his ability. It's about his fit and what he catches on to what they're able to do. Austin Barber is a gigantic human being. You notice that right away. So Brailsford is not a gigantic human being, but I think one of the discussion points is they're pretty nailed into who or four their offensive line starters are going to be.
Monken said so yesterday. Yeah,
and either Elton Jenkins is going to be the center, or Brailsford's going to be the center, and Elton Jenkins will play right guard, and that's something that's going to play itself out in August.
We talked about some of the offensive changes. There's a new defensive coordinator here too. Jim Schwartz gone, Mike Rutenberg in. Have you gotten any sense of a defensive identity from these OTAs? I know all the attention's been on the offense, but have you been able to learn anything about the defense?
Are you asking me, is Jim Schwartz going to be the Rams defensive coordinator in 2027? Oh, no, I made that up. Sorry. No, because the guys aren't there and because we're watching the quarterbacks, you know.
Fair enough.
They paid Quincy Williams a decent amount of money. They're counting on him. They've invested in the D-line. Myles Garrett's gone, but they still feel good about that, and it's just going to be, when can McNeil Warren play? What happens with Grant Delpit? Is Grant Delpit not out there because he doesn't want to be, or is we headed for a contract dispute? We don't know that. And then there is opportunity for all of these corners who aren't named Ward or Campbell, whether Ward's going to be in the plans or not. But they're getting great reps right now.
Yeah.
They're getting chances, but how that's going, I don't know.
Did you have any issue with what Jim Schwartz said on the interview on the Ryan Ripken show?
I thought he was going to be not going to be full Jim Schwartz, but I thought he was. And by the way, I was trying to make a joke there whether I did or not. Like, it's a real possibility. Chris Shula is going to be a head coach.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I had no issue with what Schwartz said.
We talked about it yesterday. He was honest. He was transparent. Forced marriages don't work.
We said that on the show 100 times.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought he could have gone one direction and made it more personal and made it a bigger thing. I thought he took the high road and.
I'll put it this way: if you would have told me that Jim Schwartz did a potty, in my head I would have played that was his answer.
I heard you on the radio say you thought Miles would still be here if he got the head coaching job. I was surprised to hear that.
See, I thought that was the simplest question. I couldn't believe they were stunned by that
but
answer.
if they're going to trade him, they're going to trade him.
No, but if you're committing to Jim Schwartz, you're committing to giving him power.
I guess I look at it as
I'm with Zach, because if they had hired Jim Schwartz, that means Miles went into Jimmy's office, said, "I want this guy to be my head coach, and if you're going to hire the guy I want,
I guess I look
I'm
at
going
it
to be here."
You could hire Jim and trade him anyway.
You could have, but I think that would have been a non-starter.
I'm with Zach.
You would have committed to different things, and that's obvious. Whether it's Todd, Jim, someone else.
Yeah, I think a lot of people took that as. I don't know if I can explain it properly. A lot of people took that like Miles didn't get his way, so he forced his way out. But I think I don't care what they say. I think ultimately they were going to trade him anyway, regardless of who the head coach was.
I think that too, but I think it would have been a lot tougher with Jim Schwartz because I think you would have said this. Whereas now Todd's in, and Miles probably wasn't super happy about it, and you're giving Todd a chance to set his own culture.
Yeah.
Look, these 21 and 22-year-old players, and that's going to be half the roster, by the way, they worship Myles Garrett. So if Myles Garrett has his own set of rules, that does not, he's earned the chance to have his own set of rules to some regard. But was that ever going to click with Todd, and was that going to be the best thing for the future of the organization? It wasn't.
I said the other day, and I don't want to bang on Miles. I'm not going to do that.
Exactly.
But there is a cleansing of the culture going on right now in Berea, I believe.
And that's what it should be when you fire a head coach, especially when you fire a head coach that won 5 games and it's like, darn, that was pretty good.